And here we are, day 5, discarded like trash. And if I had to say anything about today, I would say that we're going to cover a little bit more about Tamar and Amnon. And one of the things that we notice is that there's such a thin line between love and lust. And so reading the story of Amnon and Tamar, we see that, as I covered yesterday, that he started out saying how much he loved Tamar, how much he loved her, to the point that it made him sick. He couldn't eat, he was losing weight, he was getting thin, people were noticing, and he loved her. And one of his servants, one of his friends, decided to give him a plan to get alone time with her. And we know that, historically, there's nobody typically that's ever been raped or violated in a public space or around other people. But when he got what he wanted, um, says that when he got what he wanted, and I'm reading 2 Samuel chapter 13, starting at verse number 12. um, she answered him. She said, "Nay, my brother, do not force me. Don't take advantage of me. Why? For no such thing should be done in Israel." Says that he did not listen to her. She said, "Do not do this folly, and whither I shall cause my shame to go. What am I going to do after you do this heartbreaking thing to me?" He didn't listen to her. So once he got what he wanted from his sister Tamar, it says that he called his servant that ministered unto him and said in verse 17, "Put now this woman out from me," and bolt the door after her. He discarded her like trash. So how do you know the difference between love and lust? Love and lust. There sometimes can feel like the same thing. It can feel like so similar, especially starting out. The one thing I hear everybody say is that time tends to tell the difference. So let's look at some differences between lust and love. And I know it seems like I'm pivoting, but many of us have found ourselves in situation with people who said that they loved us, maybe even love bombed us in the beginning, only to find out that it was only lust, and that once they got what they wanted, they discarded us like trash. Such is the case as Tamar. So lust tends to focus on physical attraction and sexual desire. So if we look at this story, even starting on the second Samuel, starting out at the verse number 2, it says that in Amnon he was so vexed that he fell sick for his sister, for she was a virgin. Like, why are we focusing on her sexual history or the lack thereof? So lust tends to focus on physical attraction and sexual desire. The nature is primarily selfish, is focused on one's own gratification. When we look at this story, she begged him, she pleaded with him, "Please do not do this to me." But he focused only on what he wanted and not on what was going to preserve her reputation, preserve her dignity. He was only focused on what he wanted. It can be short lived or fade quickly. And we see that after he got what he wanted from her, it says that in verse 15, that Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her, it was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her. How short time was this? Not long ago, you said how much you loved me, how much you cared about me. And yet, after he got what he wanted physically, it's like the tables flipped immediately. And that's the difference between lust and love. It's short-lived, it fades very quickly. An intense physical arousal and wanting to be physically intimate with someone, and only time can tell. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to take our time, so that we don't end up in situations that not only cause shame, but cause heartbreak, cause pain, cause stigmas to be relived. With love, the focus is emotional connection, care, and even respect. Even if it requires sacrifice, it tends to deepen and grow stronger over time. An example is wanting to spend time with someone and sharing personal details and being invested in their life beyond the physical. The key differences involve emotional connection, right? There's an emotional connection versus just trying to have a physical connection. It's selflessness versus selfishness, the duration and intensity, and even the involvement in the other person's life. And so we have to be very careful because lust and love, it can coexist, especially in the early stages of relationship. And this is why we have to take our time. Listen, no one can put on an act forever. Eventually, who they are and what their intentions and motivations are will eventually come to the forefront. So if we trying to preserve ourselves from experiencing shame and heartbreak, men and women, we've got to take our time. So the story of Tamar and Amnon is a very emotional a very emotional story, and I encourage each and every one of you to take some time and kinda read that story, regardless of where you are in your life. And again, this is Chandra, and I am talking about shame. I'm talking about the experiences and the symptoms and the causes of shame in our lives. And this Lunch and Live series, we're gonna, dive into even the symptoms, the manifestations of what shame looks like in our lives. But, we have to live by truth. We have to, address these things that have caused us to have failure and caused us to have brokenness in our lives. So if we live by labels instead of truth, we'll start believing what people call us. We'll start believing what others have projected onto us. We'll start to believe the broken lies that shame can bring to our lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, check out the next series or even the series that we shared part 4 yesterday, talking about the full story of Tamar and Amnon. God bless you.